Everyone, and welcome to the 11-11-11-11 broadcast with Karen Newman and myself, Will Mitchell, and we have Rowie, who is, you can't see him, but he is there, and he'll be monitoring the chat and working on the board. So we have a hangout today about living your integral self, and that's a topic that's not always addressed, but in the spiritual world, it's something that I think, personally I think, and Will and I have had this discussion, that maybe needs to be talked about a little bit more, at least at some point within your walk. It's not about judgment or anything like that. It's just more about looking at yourself, if you're willing, and to discuss, what is our responsibility as someone who is opening up and someone who is saying that they're becoming aware, and what is the responsibility that we have to the world and to ourselves to make the world better and to hopefully leave a beautiful world, a more beautiful world than we entered, for the people that are left and the people that come after us. So I'd like to welcome to the Hangout the people that are here with us. And Will, can you do that? Because I don't know everybody's name and I don't want to miss somebody. So let me see if I can do that.
Sure thing. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
My name is Will Mitchell. And can you hear me fine? I'm adjusting my mic here.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And in the room we have, let's start in the middle with Rowie. We have Rowie and Kim.
Okay.
I don't know if Kim's going to be speaking or not. We have Brian. We have Marlo, Michelle, Rainbow, Rishan, and Valerie.
Oh, Rishan, yes, hi, Rishan. She's from Facebook. She's one of my Facebook in the Shifters group, in Consciousness 2.0. So welcome.
Well, welcome everyone.
Yeah.
And Karen, I would like to say that, well, thanks for hosting this, and Rowie, thanks for hosting this as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And I call it living your integral self.
Okay.
Which is, integrity, because to me, if it sounds like, if it's integral, if you pronounce it integral, then you tend to lean towards the integrity version of the definition of, or integral. To me, integral means whole, and integral means adhering to your value system. But guess what? If you look at both definitions, they both mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Because how can you be whole if you're not living to your own set of rules? Living with integrity.
I agree. I was saying earlier, and the way that we actually thought of having this hangout, and this is going to be not a hangout of us just talking to you. It's supposed to be a group discussion, and we really want everyone to participate and ask questions if they have them and contribute their own thoughts, because this is such a deeply personal thing. This was really born out of something that I've been experiencing over the last year to 2 years, is when my guides, the beings that I channel, Theos, have been saying to me, Karen, when do you believe what you say you believe? When is your life going to reflect all the things that you talk about? And they weren't saying it to me in a judgment way, like, you're not doing everything you say, but they were really challenging me to start looking on a deep way about what did I say that I believed, and what did my actions show that I believed. And there sometimes is a differential between the two of them. And then as that's gone on, I've really started to take a deep look at everything, and it goes down, it really goes so deep, and by pretending that it doesn't, or skipping by things, you're not actually being that true to yourself. And I think it's a progression. I don't think it's just instantly, you are, well, maybe for some people, but not for me, that everything that you do is reflective of your belief. But I think ultimately that's where we all want to go. We want to walk the talk that we talk about. So at some point there becomes a need to take stock personally, because yes, we are a group, and yes, we co-create, but I can only control myself, and only everyone else can only control themselves. So that's sort of where this is born out of. And again, the question remains, and it's sort of a rhetorical question of when do you believe what you say do you believe, and when does your life reflect the ideals of your beliefs? I believe that it does reflect the ideals of your beliefs. I'm just saying the ones that we talk about, the ones that we dream about, the ones we say, oh, I want this kind of better world. Well, how does it really come about, and what is our part in it? So that's sort of how this Hangout came about.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
I think being self-aware, I mean, this is what we're talking about, is being self-aware, is being aware of how you feel, being aware of how what you say impacts what you do,
Yeah.
and are you paying attention to what you're doing?
Right. And it goes very deep. We had this conversation in preparation, and we talked about living your bliss, and what does that really mean, living your bliss? And you know, it can be anything, and we'll use the example of maybe your big bliss is to have a flower shop and be the best flower designer in the world. And so the question is, okay, but that's great, but what is the far-reaching meaning of that? You know, it's one thing to just do something because it feels good to you, but what is your responsibility as a being, an aware being, that how does your actions and what you choose in that moment, how does it roll out? And I used a graphic for this talk, saying that no drop of water thinks it's responsible for the flood. But we really know that that's not true. Every action spreads out. So as a florist, are you buying your flowers? Are you getting your flowers from reputable sources? If you are, you know, do you know that the people that you're getting them from, are they being treated fairly? Is the people that are growing them, are they using pesticides that has destroyed the environment? Are you using flowers that destroy the environment? Those kind of things are worth understanding and worth knowing. And so it'd be interesting to get some people's thoughts on just how deeply does that go, and where does that integrity or the integration of the integral self, where does it stop? And whose responsibility is it? And the other question is, have you made changes in your life to reflect things that may have impacted things in a different way? You know, or do you just say, well, you know, as long as it's good for me, it's okay, because it may or may not be the case. It's up to you to decide. Will, do you have any thoughts on that?
I love your viewpoints. And since the topic is living your integral self.
Yeah, yours personally, not you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what I see with what you said, Karen, is that if you were going to make the flower shop, you would ensure that the supplier of your flowers grew them organically.
I'm giving that example because it's just, at what point does living your integral life begin? Is it for the benefit and the end result of what you're doing, and everything else that comes before it is not part of your decision-making process and not part of your choices? Is it just you in the moment, and whatever you need you just take? Or is it you start to look at things from the whole standpoint, and how does it go with the whole, and how is it, you know, impacting everything? Because we all talk about oneness. We all talk about that we're connected. We all talk about those things. I think those are the givens of a discussion with the people in the room, and maybe the people listening. At least that's what we say. So what does that really mean in the in the working of it all. What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, where did it start is my question. Then, if you had this idea to create this flower shop, what was your highest bliss that triggered it?
Well, I would think if it was a flower shop, and that's not my highest bliss, maybe it's Rashan's because she's always making beautiful things, or maybe Michelle because she's always creating beautiful drawings and things. But I believe that it would be to give pleasure and to, to have something visually aesthetic, and also to have your creativity be satisfied in some way. And that would give that bliss. That would be the payoff. The question is does it stop there? And what defines the true beauty of it? Is the beauty of it just the beautiful flower display, or is the beauty of it bigger? Is the beauty of it that you did deal with people that weren't poisoning the earth with pesticides and negative things, and you were dealing with companies that are not exploiting labor, or these are just things about this particular flower shop, but it really goes further. Are you choosing to get flowers from an area that's, say, not in drought? These are the big decisions, and they're so easy to brush over it because it's good for you. But the question is the beauty of something enhanced by it being, for lack of a better word, pure? Or is blood diamonds worth it? Because you get a big, beautiful diamond.
Because is it something to do with awareness as well? Because all of those things that you've mentioned have a level of awareness to them.
Sure.
So if you weren't aware of, let's say, pesticides and all that things, and you didn't have that knowledge, then you would consider that to be pure because you wouldn't have the awareness.
Right.
As soon as you start putting in all those deeper levels, and it starts getting a little bit more complicated.
Well, it gets more complicated because the choice is narrow. And the question is, how much are we really looking at what we're doing? And is it our responsibility to really look? If you, for instance, one of the things that just came up is that, Nestle, and sorry to the Nestle people out there, they're continuing to drain the water from California to make bottled water. They've just now actually protested and have been able to stop them now. But why, if they knew California was in such a drought, why wasn't that decision made? What is the resistance to choose not to kill something? What is that?
Well, personally, just about in there, I would say that would be greed. That would be profit over.
The knowledge, that's exactly right. So their choice was greed, regardless of the information they had. But we do it, and I'm saying we being me, personally, we make little choices like that too, that also perpetuate it. We perpetuate it. We buy the water. We do the things, and I have to wonder how much of the stuff that we really do we need to become mindful about? Do we need to really start looking really down the line, as much as you can? Of course, you can't see everything, but it doesn't hurt to become aware, because it does have a knock-on effect.
Karen, what you're speaking about is brilliant. It's just bringing self-awareness. Let's really bring it to the masses. And the more that you share, the more people wake up, the more they start to make that conscious decision on what they choose.
Well, I would say it's not just what I share, it's what we do.
Yes, yes.
I will say this.
But it starts with the self.
It starts with it always starts with yourself, I know that I was walking down my street today, and I was so happy just walking down the shopping street where I am. They have now in a mile long, or 2 meter or 2 kilometer span of the shopping street, 3 organic grocery stores now. 3. And it just shows that the populace is asking for these things. And we're talking about food because it's a very tangible thing, but it goes much deeper. 3 organic shops. I know that one of the things I personally am so excited about is a company I used to work for years ago. When I said, can we use recycled materials and maybe no artificial sweeteners and stuff, they laughed at me. They said, nobody cares about that. No one cares about that crap. And they were like, don't be silly, don't be crazy. And they really, laughed. And now they're coming out with products that have no artificial sweeteners, completely natural, recycled products, all this stuff. And it just shows that you have to start somewhere, and sometimes you are the lone voice in the crowd, but it shouldn't deter you. You shouldn't just say, I could have just as easily said, yeah, you're right, no one cares. But you can also be the seed that's planted, and you may not see it, come to fruition ever. But, you still, the person who put the first brick in the wall of China never saw that 1,000-year wall completed. But should they just not have built it because they were never going to see the result? I think that that's probably short-term thinking. And we have to know that the steps that we take together in the beginning, this is my cat monkey, there he goes. But those steps, they do make a difference, even if you don't see the result, because the action and the intention will play out, it will spread out, and it's important. It's very important, and everyone's going to have their thing, that change that they're going to enact, that ball that they're going to start rolling. But I would say you start rolling the ball, even if you're the only one pushing it. It'll get a lot lighter once it starts to take, starts moving. But don't think that those little things, don't make a difference. That standing up for people being bullied, anything can make a difference.
So Karen, as you talk about the integral self, and as I mentioned with awareness earlier, I guess the greater awareness we do have gives us more opportunity to be integral on our choices.
Yes.
And the more we can, I know I did say it can get a bit more complicated, but as we see the systems becoming much more one and much more of a singularity with our systems, the opportunity of being integral, I believe personally, will open up and manifest itself within our opportunities. And that may also be a reflection of what we say, walking the talk, or reflecting back to belief system.
It starts with the decision to do it. It starts with looking at it. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that. I can't think about that." But I would encourage you to just take baby steps. Go ahead, Brian.
They second guessed themselves and they said, "Oh, my voice doesn't count. I'm not worthy enough, or what do I have to offer?" But that spark, just by sharing this, that one person does make a difference. It will go a long way. It's that snowball effect. It just takes time to build that momentum, but it pays off in the long run.
Well, if we all say that we're the light workers, then we got to work with the light then. Again, it's when do you believe what you say you believe? When does your life start to reflect? And again, it's not a judgment of anybody or anything. This is personally something that I am going through. They always say you teach what you need to learn. So I am the first one to say that my life has been introspective in this regard for a while, and it's not like it's going to end anytime soon. There's no sort of medal of achievement at the end, because everything is really constantly a choice. Everything, every little reaction, every action is really a choice. And people talk about mindfulness a lot, but mindfulness is this. This is mindfulness. This is being really aware in every moment and taking the time, because that's what it is, the time to consider your action, consider your reaction, and that is really what it's part of. So if anyone maybe wants to share about, what something that they've done that they maybe would say that's something they need to do or they would like to do, or you can say, no, Karen, shut up, you're wrong, then I'm happy to hear all of it. So
I'd really like to hear, Will had started speaking about this and then he did not get to finish. So I'd like to hear what he had to say about that.
Please, Will, you can get to finish.
About that what? About the flower shop, Michelle?
Your perspective on, about integral and the personal, I mean, where you left off. I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay. With the flower shop, my personal beliefs, I heard a lot of belief systems coming from Karen, and that means a lot to her. That if she were going to create a flower shop, she would ensure that she would be a responsible consumer of who's ever delivering the flowers to her, that they would be organic and weren't grown in slave labor and things like that.
Yeah.
But what I would like to say is that if your highest bliss, is anyone out there, if your highest bliss is to create a flower shop, look at why you want to create the flower shop. I don't want to put my belief system on anybody who wants to create a flower shop and say that you must create your flower shop, you must consume organic flowers, you must get the flowers from this way, because that way you will be a responsible citizen in the world. You're adhering to my belief system if I tell you that. Whatever drives you to create your flower shop is what I want to support. To me, if you have a flower shop in a slum area, guess what? You're bringing flowers to that depressed area where there were no flowers before. Okay, and if people come by and they buy flowers where they didn't have the opportunity to buy flowers before, guess what? You're brightening someone's day. Oh, and maybe they're going to spontaneously buy flowers. Whether they were grown with pesticides or not, somebody's day is going to be brightened. Once this flower shop gets bigger, maybe there's a time in which they learn about organic flowers or they learn about sustainable growing, and then it's now their highest bliss to also do that as well as sell flowers. To me, any reason, if you're selling flowers, why are you selling the flowers? And are you selling it just to make money? Well, that's not, I don't want to judge you by saying this is the right way to do it. But are you using your own personal integrity and your own set of rules while you're doing it? But yes, Karen, you said if we're light workers, are we walking the walk? Are we doing what we say we're doing? So once we're done with this webinar, are we going to go and kick our cat? Are we going to go yell at our neighbor? Things like that.
Can I just add something? Oh, sorry, Will.
Sure, please, Kim.
I just wanted to just share with everybody something that happened when my daughter was unwell, and we found a treatment for her that's actually all over the rest of the world. We didn't have it here in Australia, and we took her overseas to have this treatment, and it was remarkable. And if we were able to stay, I am sure she would still be with us, and that's difficult to say. However, we came back to Australia. When I say me, I'm talking about my immediate family. We came back to Australia, and Kalia passed away, and beyond that though, Kalia was always all about teaching. She always wanted the learning nurses, the learning doctors, the learning scanners. She wanted all of them to be working with her, with the professionals. She was all about that. So we went further with that after she passed away, and we started to lobby our politicians to get this technology here in Australia. And it took about 2.5 years, working really closely with a company that makes this technology. And my parents were going up to our capital, meeting with MPs all over the place. We were on television talking about it. We were actually invited to go back to India, where she had the treatment, to do a follow-up story with one of our news channels. But ultimately, we did. It felt necessary and totally within our integrity to get this technology in our country and save lives. And we're prepared to do whatever it takes, because what our loss, Kalia's sacrifice, it needed to amount to something, and it needed to be something great for humanity. And as a result, we got our first machine in Australia about 12 months ago. So that, for me, was very much a driving force. It was a passion, it was a fire, and it was a gift I wanted to give to people in our country. And also in Kalia's honour, because she was passionate about new things and new ideas as well. And she knows it worked. So, yeah, I just want to share that. I mean, it can be something that large. One person, we were, my mum, my dad, me and Brittany, 4 of us. We made that difference, and we got this technology in this country. And that's how powerful it can be if one person stands up and says they want to make a change. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, thank you. It does. It makes a huge difference if one person just believes and, holds on to their belief, regardless of if it's the popular thing to do in the moment. And again, I know you're saying, you guys are talking about, oh, there's your belief systems. I'm trying to use examples that are relatable. It's really not about just organic or whatever. It's not about that. It's about following your highest bliss. But it's also a question of how far out do we start to, to look at what we're doing. And again, someone starting a flower shop in a depressed area, that's a beautiful thing. But I'm not to say it's not a light worker doing it. But I'm talking about people who are claiming awareness, who are saying that they're aware, so when do we start to really look at it? And it's a question. When do we look at it? Are you looking at it personally? Is it something you think we should look at? That's really the proposition of what I'm saying. It's not to say you have to do this or anybody has to do anything. It's just, what reflection is important to you? What do you think makes the difference going forward? Or do you say, well, you know what, it doesn't matter? That's really the questions I'd like to stay.
Can I talk right now?
Sure. Who's that?
This is Val.
Hi, Val. Hi.
I just started being aware of things, after I wasn't able to work anymore. And the first thing that came to my attention was from my daughter that Monsanto was trying to take over the seeds.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way, that cannot happen. I mean, really, Jessica, you've lost it. And then I did my research, and I was like, are you kidding me? They really are. So, I mean, a lot of times I really do think awareness is the start of that change, that wanting to be more mindful about what you eat, about where it comes from, maybe growing your own stuff, and learning more about soil and how to amend it naturally. It goes from there to buying your seeds, making sure that they're the kind of seeds that you do want to grow. And from there, like you said, with the pesticides and that kind of thing, choosing natural options. But like I said, none of that started for me seriously until I had that first awareness. And I have to hand it to my daughter for waking my butt up, because without that, I probably wouldn't have known.
Yeah, you don't know until you know. You really don't know. And
that's why it's so important for us just to open up a little bit and to tell other people how we choose, and then leave it up to them to choose or not. I'm vegetarian, vegan, but I don't judge anybody else that doesn't choose to be that. You know, it's like you have to have your own mindfulness in that, and not try to push it on someone else, even though it's good for Gaia.
Can I add something to that? What you just said there.
Sure.
I just want to say much love to the whole group. I love you all, but it's my understanding, at least in America, that because I'm Irish, that these like Monsanto seeds are actually much more cheaper than the natural organic growing stuff. So if anyone, can't afford it, that's listening out there, that's on the Hangouts, what you can do is you can transmute the energy through your beliefs. You can just say, okay, it may be my understanding that Monsanto's, put in a lot of crap into this food. I understand that they're trying to do that, but you know what? I'm just gonna say, just beep it. I'm just going to say, okay, I put love into this food, and it's going to be the most healthiest, nutritional thing that I can eat. And if you do have the belief that you do create your own reality, I know some of you out there that don't, that's fair enough. Believe whatever you want to believe. But if the people that do believe this, if you do it, then it actually transmutes all that negativity. It transmutes all of that, poison that they put into that food or whatever. It transmutes that, and you can make it a healthy, nutritional food that you can enjoy. That's if your belief is strong enough. I just wanted to add that.
I agree. I also think that, we're all on our own path, and we're all where we are at. We're all exposed. What is important to us is very personal. And like over time, strangely, like my body has started to prefer different things. And I've had serendipitous events where I'm exposed to getting non-GMO, blah, 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 for really good prices or something like that. So, I have to be really careful on my path about not being super strict and about any one thing, because then I will make that the only thing I think about. I have to be kind of like, I have to balance, okay, yes, I understand that this hamburger I'm eating, like I understand the history behind this, and then I bless my food because that is my belief system. But most of the time, just because my body and awareness is changing over time, I choose other things. But to me, it's so personal. Yeah, I think more important than things necessarily, unless they really resonate with you, is, do I live by spiritual principles? Do I tell the truth? Am I loving? Am I caring? Am I giving? That. And I think everything else falls into place when it's time for people. And I get exposed to, in my journey, I got exposed to, let's say, Louise Hay, then Abraham Hicks, then a couple other things, and then Hucolo, right? It's all in perfect timing for me. That's all.
I agree with you, Michelle. I think it is personal, and it is a progression. I don't take issue with anything you've said. I think it's beautifully said. I think, though, I will have a caveat. I will say that sometimes the loving thing is also how you treat things around you, the choices you make. That's also a demonstrative version of love. So again, it's awareness about coming into it. I want to move to a sort of different part of the conversation, because maybe this will kind of also give some food for thought of, and this is something, and maybe Will wants to jump in, is, okay, so here's your personal choices now that serve you in the moment. The question is, are we thinking, or are we thinking enough? Do we think about how it's going to impact the future? And are we actually thinking about what we're doing now, how it's going to build the world of tomorrow? So, do you want to say anything about that, Will?
When you ask those questions is the key.
Yeah, when you ask them, yeah.
I think when you're starting off, if it's a business type thing, that's a big daunting task anyway. And anytime that you're starting anything new, the less you think about it, I think the better off you are. You have your motivation set. You've done a little bit of homework, just like if you're starting an exercise program. You go talk to your doctor and you start exercising. You don't go out to run a marathon on day 2 or on day 1. You will learn really quick. That's not what you do. And whether it's an exercise program or whether it's starting a business or becoming spiritual, what I like to say is be awesome right now. When should you start? Right now. And if you follow that, at least that's getting you in the now, and then you start looking forward just a little bit. If running a marathon is a goal of yours, hopefully you will come to the conclusion that it's a long-term goal and not a short-term goal. If you're running every day and all of a sudden you know you've done the work already, and you want to sign up for a marathon that's happening on Sunday, cool, go for it. You can make that short-term decision because you know you've done the work already. So that's an easier short-term decision. Some decisions are long-term, some decisions are short-term. But when do you inundate yourself?
We lost your audio. We lost your audio.
Did you know?
Yeah, just
together.
When,
How about now?
When do you inundate yourself? And then we lost you after that.
Right. So you can inundate yourself with all the questions that you can ask. So you set your goals. You have short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals. But I don't want to stop anybody from opening a flower shop if they don't know how to get organic flowers, or how do you ensure that your distributor does these things?
Oh, we lost you again.
Did you know? Maybe I'll switch microphones.
Yeah. Okay. Just to
I can hear him.
Can you? Because he keeps cutting in and out for me.
Yeah, he's cutting in and out.
Yeah. He's talking and then it's coming in.
I'd like to talk just a little bit about starting a business, since I actually have a home business that is called 406 Upcycled.
Awesome.
And when I started it, I had in mind to use completely recycled materials. And so that's what I do. I end up going either to garage sales, thrift store sales, that kind of thing. I get sweaters that have parts of them that are not good, parts of them that are good, and I cut them up and make coats out of them. And in the process of that, not long after I started the business, I ran into a couple that had a nonprofit organization called the Cash Hide Foundation. And what they do is they help little kids with cancer, the families of little kids with cancer, with funding, with medication, with things like that. And so I was really inspired by them and their giving and helping all these families. And so I wanted to do my part too. And so I felt like, well, my business does okay. I can afford to give back some. And that was the next step for me, was giving back from the business. I donate coats to the little kids that have cancers, and that goes to the girls, and then the little boys get capes. And it really brings a smile to their face and warms my heart in a way that I had never experienced before, quite honestly. It brings tears to my eyes. It's so wonderful. And I also donate other coats for them that they can auction off, and that provides money for the families. So, I mean, I think that when you have a business, yes, the first thing is to just get it off the ground. But then once you're off the ground and running and you're doing okay, if you can afford to give back a little bit, I think that that's a great way to show how grateful you are to be able to do what you do. And in the same time, like I said, you get back. When I give, I get back way more than I ever give. It's just astounding, that feeling. I just would wish it for everyone. So, I mean, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, that's wonderful, and thank you for doing that. I mean, thank you for thinking that far into it and continually to grow it out and to see the opportunity. And yeah, I'm appreciative of that too, and thank you for that. It's amazing. It's just, I have a question for you though. In starting your business,
yeah,
did you, when you first started it, did you chose to use like recycled materials, and was there ever a time where you just thought, I'm just going to do this, or was it based on the idea of wanting it to be that way from the beginning?
It was based on that from the beginning.
Yeah.
That was like, it just came from my heart that that's the way it had to be. And then the same thing goes for giving to the children.
Yes.
That comes from my heart, and my heart gets back, like I said, so much. It's just the most incredible feeling. I can't even put it into words. And
so let's
the
fast
families
forward.
that have benefited are all around the world at this time.
Okay.
And I just live in a little town in Missoula, so
awesome.
that lets you know that can ripple out. One person really can make a difference.
Okay, so let's fast forward you. You're now a multi-billion publicly traded corporation. That is, yeah, could happen, right? You've made these business decisions, and all of a sudden you find out that your thread that you're using is in some way toxic. Nobody's ever died from it. No one's ever complained about it, but it's in some way toxic to the environment, to people, that it's unethically made. You find out maybe that one of the people in your company has been paid off by a thread lobbyist and has encouraged that person to take a cheaper, maybe non-good thread. What do you do as a company? Because your profits are soaring now. Your shareholders are excited because every year it's just, your coat company is just going up, up, up. So when do you make that decision? When does the financial gain, when does people will lose their jobs. Lots of people are going to lose their jobs because you're going to, if you change what's happened, it's going to devastate a lot of people. So, and it may devastate you. You may not get the money you have.
For me personally, I run an ethical company as far as that goes, and I would continue to do so throughout. And I mean, I know it takes a lot more time to do the research, but that's just something that I would always do and keep up on.
Yeah.
That's just first and foremost in my mind always, is making sure that things are good for, especially because I do give to the children with cancer. I definitely wouldn't want anything to ever happen, and should it happen accidentally, I would ask the coat be sent back and pay for the shipping and redo it.
But you know where I'm going with it. I mean, there's a lot of things that come up in companies where they may not know something is bad when they start out. They may not know that something that they're doing has a negative impact on other people or environment or whatever. But yet there's that moment where they can make that decision to shift it, and then a lot of times they don't.
Like you see a lot of people now taking out hormones out of the meat.
Yes.
They won't. That's a big change. We are seeing those changes around us. I think Kim wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to address what Valerie was saying. I think it's really beautiful what you're doing, Valerie. Getting back to the question about, finding out if the thread was toxic. If you're doing that well in your business, then there's potential for you to create a way for you to provide your own threads to meet your standards then you're able to employ these people who will lose jobs elsewhere, and you're sustaining your well-being, and you know that other companies will come to you to use your threads, and it actually is a greater thing for humanity. Nobody is being denied and nobody is missing out. That's a suggestion.
I agree with that, Kim. There seems to always be the answer when you look for it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I would look to my heart and I would do some meditation, and that's, you know, definitely became a big issue in my life now, is to meditate before I do a lot of things. That helps me to balance my decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing, Valerie.
Yeah. So for people who are maybe working for a company that is not completely ethical in a lot of ways, and they see it, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to just quit? Are they supposed to try to change it? What do you
think? I would do
Why
what
is there a
Kim just did.
supposed to?
I think I would do what Kim just did. Like, if I worked for a company, I mean, most are willing to open their minds if you have a solution at the same time that you have a question, and you can provide some types of solutions, then they will listen. I mean, I've worked for other companies and came up with good ideas as far as recycling and things like that, and they've always listened. So I think they're open to listening as long as you have a solution. They don't want to have to take the time to come up with a solution.
Do you mind if I shift the contrast?
Sure.
Let's discuss a landmine company that build landmines, which solely purpose are for deterring people to cross lands, but also has an effect of maiming innocent people or soldiers. How does someone get out of that? And some of these companies are some of the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Employ a lot of people. The military-industrial complex is massive, and it's a great contributor towards
death and destruction,
and also other things as well. I mean, there's a big scope there. But how do people get out of that? That's a good question.
But aren't we talking about if you're on a spiritual path and this is your company and what you would do with it?
In full rate, it goes beyond. That's the thing. It's not just if it's your company. You're the person. It's a world full of people. We're all spiritual. You know, everyone is spiritual by definition. You're spiritual beings having a human experience. So you can't separate people from spirituality. And that's the point. It doesn't just apply to us or us personally. It's the whole world. Any one of us could find ourselves in that situation. So I say, how do you get out of it? I like Rowie's. I like the difficult questions because
my answer to Rowie's question would be I would have to follow my heart and try to I guess I would be an instigator. I would try to spread the news to all employees of what's up, you know.
But what news would you spread?
You know,
what news would you spread?
Well, how bad that it really was,
but
you know.
Who doesn't know that a landmine that blows you up into pieces is not the most positive thing?
Well, that's probably true. You're probably right there. But at the same time, I guess, you know, you got to hope that those people have some type of system inside themselves that could be triggered by
so what's the result
words
then? Triggered? Do they quit?
I mean, I don't know if they would quit, or, you know, maybe yeah. If everybody quit, then what would they do? If they couldn't find more people to work there, then what would they do?
Yep,
you know,
there'd be no one else making it.
It's kind of like how I feel about the Monsanto people, and I mean, if we don't buy their food, they're going to have to quit making it, right?
Exactly. So if everyone...
If other countries don't want it, they can't sell it there. So then it's up to the United States people to say, we're not going to buy it either.
So that's on the same parallel, isn't it?
I mean, that's the only power you have, really, is the power of the masses when it comes down to fighting somebody like, you know, the industrial complex or Monsanto.
Yeah. So what does it take? Again, this is going back to the very beginning. When sometimes you stand alone in your choices. Sometimes you quit. I will give you a very good example. I worked, the company I was working for when I talk about sport nutrition was bought by a pharmaceutical company. And the first meeting we had scared the bejesus out of me. We sat in the meeting, and I had never been in this situation, and this company makes a lot of medications. They do a lot of amazing things. But they had this sort of meeting where they announced the profits that were coming from their AIDS drugs. And they were announcing how they were excited that they were going to be able to raise the prices because the governments would pay. And they were applauding, and they were talking about how they were going to, really screw the public. And people were excited because they knew their shares were going to go up. And I sat there, and when they made these announcements, literally my blood ran cold in my body. I was thinking, this is AIDS. And they were talking about third world countries and how they could really push the World Health Organization to pay these rates, and because there was no alternative and they had cornered the market, and it was sickening. It was horrible. And I just decided right then and there I couldn't be in that situation. I couldn't do it. So literally, I had a contract, and I got to the end of my contract, and I didn't go further. But I could have been pleased. I could have thought, wow, I could really make some big money here, But the question is, what does it take for everyone to stand together in that kind of thing? If the business is landmines or something like that, when do people just let it go?
Level of integrity is needed. You're right.
Yeah, so it's not just about building a flower shop. It has so many far-reaching things, It's deeply personal. Deeply personal. The idea, though, what Rowie was saying, and what Valerie is saying is, when does that really take hold in a population? What do we personally need to do? Maybe you're the only person quitting. Maybe you're standing alone, but it does have a knock-on effect, and I think we need to trust that those choices that are for the greater good, because it is a greater good decision, will eventually pay off. Kalia Bell, Kim's daughter, never got to see her dream. At least in the spirit world she sees it, but in this waking world, she took steps that changed medicine in Australia. If she hadn't made those first steps, she would have never made the change. So I encourage everyone, if it's their belief, to stand for something that you say you believe, stand for it. Don't just say, oh, well, it's not convenient for me at the moment. Convenience has little to do with what's right a lot of the time. And that's you decide what's right for yourself. I want to encourage everyone to stand in their truth, because if you don't, no one else will. It's your truth. You've got to stand in it first. So,
I think that goes for everything.
Can I say something here, Valerie?
Yeah.
Part of the challenge is for people. I think when there is enough discomfort within you where whatever it is that you're doing goes against your morals and principles, and you feel enough discomfort within yourself, then it will move you to want to do something, or you run away. That's really the two choices. You run away either by just not looking at it because you feel helpless, or you feel enough discomfort within yourself that your morals and principles say, this is just not okay with me to allow it to continue to go in this direction, whatever it may be. Because it's not just with companies, it's with your life, it's with people in your life, it's with friends, it's with choices that somebody else is making, and you say, this is not okay with me. And, I actually lost a bunch of friends because I refused to let one of my friends drive while she was drunk. And everybody basically in there were like, she is fine. I said, she is not fine. And you know, she was actually driving other people's children. And I'm saying, this is not okay. I can drive her home. I don't have a problem. And everybody backed her up because they were all in fear of what she might say. So I think it comes down to how uncomfortable are you willing to feel for what you stand for. Because if you truly believe in something, and for you it's a cause that you feel, whatever that may be, a small thing like that or a big thing like a company, that you're willing to, some people lost their lives over the cause, like Martin Luther King, something that they believed in. So I think that it comes down to just feeling enough for whatever it is that it happens to be, that you care enough about what is going on that you are willing to do something. See, I don't think, and I think that comes back to part of what we're doing, because once we learned who we are, and once we learn to connect to ourselves, we really, our compass, you know, starts to point to true north, and you really get to see, okay, this is okay and this is not okay. So we all can start to learn to walk the same path and become more in agreement of what is okay with us as a society. And yes, you know, you got to allow people to be themselves, but obviously there's going to be things that as a society we're going to agree that it's not okay. So right now, nobody has a north, you know, everybody goes in whatever direction they're pulling, and whatever they're taught. And that's, you know, that's where the other challenge comes in, because you were talking about the company that you were working for and the stocks going up and all of this. Now, a person that has stocks in that company that's never made money, and for the first time they're making money, it's like, look, now I have a little bit of money that I can retire, and I don't have to live in whatever way. So for them, they're seeing it as something good. You know, because they're not getting the full picture of whatever it is that's going on with that company. So as an employee, sometimes somebody, because you have the awareness, you can say, oh, you're making money off people with AIDS. I'm not saying that that's what you would say, but I'm saying somebody could say that. But you're not, you got to learn to see things from other people's perspective, I think. And I think sometimes we get lost in our own, because we say, and we become sometimes self-righteous, as opposed to saying, oh, that's why she thinks it's okay. Maybe if I explain to her that she's making money off of stock of people with AIDS, that they could have gotten it for 20 cents instead of $1.50 for the pill, then they could understand why I'm objecting to this. So I think, you know, we all need to get on board with each other, not just with ourselves, but with each other. And obviously, first starts with ourselves. First starts understanding who we are. First starts understanding what is it really that we want, you know, as a planet. Never mind as a group, but what is it? Where is it that we want to go as a planet? You know,
that's the far-reaching question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with what is that? I don't know if there's some feedback, but I agree 100% with what you're saying. It does. It starts with all of us. It starts individually, and then it has a knock-on. So it does begin with the awareness, and you know, you're right about the person who may be buying stock and doesn't know, and they're like, whoa, I just made a bunch of money, and it comes with the awareness. The question being, though, as aware beings of us, it's one thing to talk about people who don't know. Ignorance is bliss, and you kind of get a free pass if you don't know. But for people who are aware, who say they're aware, when do we start really looking? Is it our responsibility to start looking? Is it, are we, you're not required to do anything, but is it your responsibility? And when do you start? If it is your responsibility, or if it's not your responsibility, you can never complain about the world being different than what you want it to be, because you're not thinking about it.
To answer your question, when do you start? It's when you choose to start.
Yeah, okay.
So if you don't support the company that is doing something you don't like, you don't buy their products.
Right.
The problem is, sometimes you don't even see the label on the back of the product. So you turn it around, you go, oh my God, I've just eaten a chocolate bar from that company that I don't like.
Right.
So it can be quite tricky. So you do have to almost train yourself into that. I have to go and check what the label is, which brand is that, which company owns that thing, which ones. I'll share a story on the 11th of every month. I'm quite religious about this, and I shared this before we started, that I will not use any major banks. I will not use any big corporations, supermarkets. I will use local, and these are the changes I personally have made. It's once per month. It's not anything really that major, but it's a start. And if I can get that to every day, that would be beautiful, because I would love to not be using banks. I would love to be using my own bank account on my own computer, not having to rely on all these other companies and big things.
Yeah.
So when do you start? When you choose to.
Okay, and you've chosen to start with the 11th of the month.
Every month. Yeah.
Every month, yeah. Yeah. Oh, Wendy wanted to say something next. But Sabrina, beautiful what you said. 100% agree with you.
Yes, actually, that's funny because Sabrina pretty much summed up a great deal of what I wanted to say. And it's interesting. I really like that topic because of where you began with the what do you do if? And right there, Sabrina said it. When you're in integrity with yourself, you already know what you need to do. And with the fear that we feel inside, that discomfort that we feel when all of a sudden we're faced with that sort of a situation where we're like, okay, now if I do this, I'm going to cost a lot of people a lot of money and probably jobs and probably friends. However, in the end, if you were to stand up and say to the world, my thread is bad. I didn't know my thread was bad. I don't want to spread bad thread. That's not who I am. I can't live with myself knowing, and I'm so sorry that this happened, and how can I make it right, and what do I do forward? Because what's going to happen is you're not only going to not lose profits and not lose friends, because of your integrity, you are going to increase it beyond measure. And just like Sabrina said, what kind of vibration do you want to create? And so the question to the landmine thing is, you know what, there's always, not always, there's going to be companies like that. I worked in the car business. Let me tell you about leaving a place where when you are in a position to make a difference and make people's lives amazing and better and happy, think about it. A vehicle in this day and age is the second, for the average Joe, the second largest purchase of your life. You have a home and you have transportation. And when you're spending 30, 50, heaven knows what, thousands of dollars on a vehicle, it's a family member practically. You bond with it. It's a conveyance. It's your energy to get you from here to there. And when the people who run the show don't back you in the very thing that they profess is service, and you're in a position where you work for this company who does not stand truly behind their word, my integrity, yes, said, I can't stay here. I cannot, and I have to let somebody else come here and do this, because I can't stay in a place where I am not in my own integrity. And what's interesting is my very first job, full-time job, was in the car business. And it was interesting because the dichotomy of that was the president of the company at that time said, I like you because you aren't a suck-up. You don't tell me what I want to hear. You tell me what I need to hear. Because you know, by being in integrity and who you are truly, you give everyone else permission to be that, but you also give everyone else permission to say what they feel is going to make this place a better place. Because if I don't listen to you, you are me. You are the company. All of you hundreds of employees are the company. If I don't listen to you, who am I? I am nothing. And there isn't any profit. So, you know, it really does. It all boils down to vibration, resonance, your core. Who do you want to be? And you know what? Maybe one day there won't be anybody else making landmines, because the vibration will have raised to the point where we no longer need them. And you know, it's funny, talk about being a nice boss. I also had people who worked for me. And when you honor each and every cog of the wheel as the most important cog in the wheel, everybody wins. When you know that the president of the company is, I've used the garbage collector, the janitor, whatever, as the example. What happens when they don't take out the garbage? The place fills up with garbage. His job is just as important for the morale, if not more, to the company, because he picks up the garbage. He keeps it clean, fresh, pleasing for everybody to be around. And when you recognize that everyone has a place, a piece, they're part of the integral puzzle, everyone is abundant. Everyone. So, yes, there's always, right now, there's going to be those places where we don't want to be. But as you raise your vibration and let somebody else fill that position while you raise your vibration, eventually those positions are simply going to disappear.
I agree. I think that it does start with the step of doing that and raising the awareness and standing in your truth and being the best you can be. And you were fortunate to have a boss that supported you in that. Some people don't. You know, some people have the opposite experience, but you know what? That's also okay too, because you can still choose, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? What are you willing to accept? You know, if it there's the moral question of, if it means no income, no job, no something for you, are you still willing to stand by your truth?
Just to add on real quick to that, a lot of people don't want to go first.
Sure.
And that's what makes it hard also, that a lot of people don't want to go first. They would rather follow and see how it's going to turn out if someone goes first. So they don't have to take the blame if it doesn't work out the way that they thought it was going to. The great thing about that is standing up and being the leader, not so much the follower, but being your own individual leaders.
And I wasn't afraid to take the blame, Brian, and that was the whole point. Was I said, you know what? It's okay if I get it wrong, because then I know it wasn't wrong. It wasn't what I wanted, and so it shows you what you do want. Yes. And it's interesting, even the smallest things. I convinced at one company, just to boost the morale of the company, to change all the lighting in the whole company to full spectrum lighting. And you know what the hard sell that was? Do you know the cost of a light bulb, of a full spectrum light bulb, versus the cost of a cheap ass light bulb? But because I was able to show him that frequency means everything. That when you feel better, you act better. You want to do a better job. You're more alert. I took the chance of them saying, you know, this is costing a lot of money and blah blah. You know, are you crazy? And believe me, I went through that before they finally said, wow, maybe that's not such a bad
It was
idea.
nice that they did that because not everybody's in that situation. They could turn around and say, well, you're fired. Or even speak up.
But to reiterate your point is, I had to stand up and be the only one to not be afraid to say, this is for the good of all. It's got nothing to do with me personally. I gain nothing here personally except for a more pleasant environment to work.
The idea is, and Rainbow wants to say something, and just the idea is, though, it shouldn't only, not shouldn't, it's great it worked out that way. I seriously doubt that you wouldn't have said it if they had said, like Brian said, well, you're fired. We don't need those kind of ideas here. My cat is flicking his tail. But, because you have to, if the consequence can be not what you want, is it more important to stand up for what you believe than to, and maybe not get the result, be so committed to it that you don't get the result, but you still stand for it because it does still plant the seed. It does still pave a way. It may not, you may not see the payoff, like with Kalia, she didn't get to see the payoff of the work that she did in changing the thing in Australia. Sabrina didn't, she lost friends because she wasn't willing to let this woman, and she might have just driven home and nothing happened, or she might have driven home and run a bus of school children off the road. I mean, there were bigger consequences, and she looked at them and she said, I am willing to lose my friends because I know that this shouldn't happen.
But if you're moving in integrity, though, the idea is you're raising your vibration to where you will.
Yes.
You will bring to you what you do desire.
Well, I mean, she gave the example herself. She lost a lot of her friends, but that's okay. The point was, sometimes you stand up for what is right because it's right and not because you're going to benefit at all. You may be the sacrificial lamb, but that's okay. That's really okay. It's not about the result of the immediate result. It's about you standing in your truth and holding on to it and knowing that that is your truth, and it's not going to be changed because this group of people over here doesn't agree with you. And that's the big thing. That's the deep thing, and it goes so deep. I mean, it's not big sweeping things of a whole company. It's every little tiny little thing in your life really has that a decision. It doesn't have to be life or death, but in a way it all builds. So Rainbow wanted to say something, and we keep talking, and she's been waiting. So if you can go ahead, that'd be great. Rainbow. She's not there.
Heyo.
Oh man, it's a Rainbow man. I'm so sorry.
Right.
Hi.
Hey. I wanna just add an experience I had. Growing up, you'd always have to listen to authority figures and do what they say, especially in school. And I had scenarios like one where I was sick and the teacher told me to eat it up again. And because I was about, I think, 6 years old, I just did it because I was too scared to say no to it. So now, like a scenario where a teacher, you can tell when they try to you can tell, I use a teacher, but you can tell when someone tries to intimidate you, for whatever reasons they have. And for some reason this time, I just had this feeling that said, no, this time you're not going to take it. Maybe take on his energy or something like that. And so I didn't. And we clashed, not in a physical way, but in more like a energy eyes. Who's going to give in? And it just keeps saying to me, like, don't give in. You've given in so much your whole life. This time you don't give in. And so that ended with him leaving the room, going downstairs for a minute, probably to cool off. And I was a bit like, my energy was fluctuating, like a heartbeat. I could feel my heartbeat. It was pretty much racing. And I was like, wow, finally. Finally. And then, yeah, I think he called me down and said, we can't carry on like this. We have to work together. You have your ways, I have mine. Can we come to an agreement? And so I apologized first. And he didn't apologize, but he patted me on the shoulder because he's an old fireman. He's an old man. I think I just took that as a sign of, well, the energy felt like he was just happy that I did that in a thankful way. And now actually we're very good friends after that. Like, and the funny thing is, he actually sticks up for me because he knew like I was honest in my saying that. I don't know if he could feel something, but he knew I didn't mean it in a bad way. I just think he connected in that sense. And I just want to say, like, it is like what you guys say. It's the hardest decision to be honest about oneself and take action on that honesty. Like, but there's only so many times you can fall down and scrape your knees until there's no more bone left, if you know what I mean.
Yep. And you stood on your power, and that's why it felt good to you.
Thank you.
It's a growth moment for you, and now hopefully, you remember the next time. And again, I think the thing is that the risk is negligible, really. I mean, the ultimate scheme of everything. Even if, as Sabrina said, and she's right, you can die for what you believe in.
Yes.
That is a risk. That's always the risk. It's always the risk. And in the big scheme of things, we know that we never die. We know that we will come back if we choose, or we will continue. So those are negligible risks, really. But when again, I would just encourage everyone to look at what they believe in. And Marlo asked the question, will your integrity die?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would say, back.
She would do the Shining kind of I'm back. She would do the Jack Nicholson version of coming back. Your integrity in the moment, and I think Will brought up, or was it Wendy or Will? I don't remember. Brought up the point of, oh no, Sabrina. Sorry, Sabrina brought up the idea of, what is it we collectively agree upon? What is the world we want to build? That is really the big question. We're all, most of us, I don't know, but all grown-up people here, and we really have the opportunity to look at what world are we building for the people who will come after us. We are paving that way now. And they stand on our shoulders, Michelle's only sort of grown up, that's okay, but she wrote that in the chat, she was sort of grown up. But, what people will stand on our shoulders, and at what level do we hope them to be? What world do we want to build for them? It's continuous, and it's a cycle. But those decisions, and that was really the reason to have this hangout at all, is just to see where people are. What are they thinking about? How deeply are they thinking about it? And it's not to say you should do this or you shouldn't. But it's a question. It's a question I ask myself now a lot. Does this make a difference? And it makes some kind of difference. It makes some kind of impact. We know everything makes an impact. So now, is it going to be conscious, the choices I make, or am I just going to dial it in because it's convenient or it's the easy thing to do? Just because something isn't easy doesn't mean it's not worth doing. I don't think everything is easy. Sometimes it does require, people say, a sacrifice, or it does make a choice. It may not be the most convenient thing for you.
Courage. Yeah.
Courage, yeah.
And like Brian said, people tend to like to go second. They don't always like to go first and be that person.
Yeah. I don't mind going first, I'll be honest. I really don't mind going first. I don't. But I also can't say I always do it right, so maybe I'm first and no one comes after me because I do it exactly right.
Karen is like, Where did everybody go?
Wait, they're running the other way. No, but it's about your integrity, and it goes deeper. And again, my wish, this is my personal wish, and maybe we could talk about everyone's wishes, but my wish is that we live in a kind world. We live in a world where we don't take advantage of each other knowingly. We don't, and we think about it to the idea of not taking advantage. We're not speaking angrily to each other. We have the basic things: clean air, clean water, healthy food, companies that will help heal us if we need it without gouging us because it's convenient or because they've cornered us in a market, that we are kind to our environment and we nurture Gaia, and because she's nurtured us, her very being has given us a place to live and to nurture us. I want a world that gives back in that way. I want to be the kind of person who looks at everyone and really sees their divinity. I want to know that the person I'm speaking to is the divine spark that's also me. That's the world I want.
Okay, so you want that world.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to some of the points that you've put on the webinar, what would you do to take responsibility to create that world?
Again, in every moment, being conscious of how do I speak to people, how do I interact with people when I do have those kind of negative thoughts, asking myself, why am I having that reaction? Why am I irritated? What is it that I am afraid of or that I think that's being taken from me? And to start to examine it on a personal level, working as best as I can in ways that are kind, things that are kind to the environment, kind to everything else. If there's something like electricity, for instance, maybe I need to really look for a greener electricity, and I have, but there's always greener things coming out. So learning about those things, educating myself about the things that I'm doing, and really considering every little thing that I'm doing, and trying to minimize my own personal impact on the world so that it's not destructive, but that this destruction I bring maybe is outweighed by the constructive that I can bring.
Okay, so let's say for a hypothetical situation that, like you said before, everyone's kind and we're all having fun, we're all growing as a population, and yeah, we have all these amazing healing abilities, but all of a sudden we need to take responsibility because there's far too many people on the planet. And all of a sudden we've now have to hit a co-creational organizational change, which means, do we limit people to have babies? Do we say, like China had to at one point, they only could have one baby because they would have grown too big?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see where I'm coming from on this? It then steps up into a co-creational level rather than the self. So the responsibility is, do we get together as a group and then come together for the best for everybody? And then that also then goes down the slippery slide of what's right and wrong again.
Yeah, well, you take China, for instance. China is now having to reverse that policy because they have too few people. Their people went through a stage where they didn't want to have girl babies, and they were killing them. They did the same in the Roman times. They killed the girl babies because boys were, not valuable. They didn't seem to be valuable. I think that if we're in a world that has reached that state where we are valuing everyone, we're all happy, I can imagine at that point borders between worlds will be less. There will be more movement of people. You won't have just one group of people just confined to one small piece of land, but still, say it's all perfect and we're all dancing through the tulips all the time, and we do get to a point where, yes, there are too many people. If we're all acting on that highest good kind of mentality, I think that the decision collectively would be congruent with each other. It wouldn't be hard to make those kind of decisions because they would be done collectively. We would know. We would know.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Can
You know?
I just say something too, Karen? I mean,
Sure.
obviously, we all resonate with the idea that collectively we could change our world and make it a greater place, and we can. But as an entire world population, at this point in time, it doesn't look viable. But I think what the process that's playing out right now is what people are calling the awakening, and it's not just integrity. It's people's value system and their belief system, but their value system.
Mm-hmm.
And we all come to look at that at different stages in our lives.
Sure.
We're still very much three-dimensional, living in a three-dimensional world, even though we understand that we're spiritual beings. So each of our journeys, if we would all sit down and look at how we came to realize who we are and what our morals are, that it would be shaped so differently, and there probably would be great differentiations. Diet, for example, and vegetarianism, vegans, and other. I mean, who decides who's that's good for and who's not? I mean, there's all those little things as well. Being righteous in the wrong environment. When do you step up and when don't you? When do you put yourself first? Because sometimes to say yes to yourself, you have to say no to others, and that can become very complicated. I mean, what Sabrina did, she took a stand, and that's great. It was her choice, and she was looking out for a friend. I mean, I'm sure we've all done things like that points in time, and I'm sure we've all stood why and seen something and wished we had done something and didn't. But I mean, yes, totally collectively, in my heart of hearts, I want to be around when that happens, when this planet gets there. But at the moment, it's happening sequentially, and hangouts like this, I thank you very much for doing it, because this is bringing awareness, and this is actually part of participating in what you're talking about. So I thank you, and Will and Rowie for doing it all, and everyone else for commenting, because this is the beginning. I guarantee it. Something will change in the next 24 hours in someone's life.
Very good. Very good. Will, did you want to say anything? Thank you for that, Kim. Will, did you want to say anything? He's gone quiet on us. There he is.
I just wanted to say thank you, Rowie and Kim. Kim, those were awesome points, and thank you, Rowie, for the interview style there. It was absolutely amazing. I loved everyone's points, and I loved the when questions that Kim talked about. Absolutely, these are the questions we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, that's why we can't get too self-righteous.
No, it's not about being prescriptive at all. It's really, it is personal, totally personal. These are the questions I'm having, and I'm asking people, are they having the same questions?
I am curious. Oh, wait a minute. I'm curious how it affects. Like, if I get into a all or nothing kind of mentality, it really sends me loopy. I don't know how anybody else feels about that. I try not to be too strict. Like, I may have a set of codes I prefer, but I'm not going to kick myself if I can't live up to that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not about judging yourself or whole. It's just like anything. It's like if you decide. Well, again, food is easy because I come from the food world, so I like to use food examples. So don't think I'm only about food, but I'm just going to use food because it's easy for me. If you decide that you want to eat organic food, the last thing that you should do is go and throw all your current food away, because that's just wasteful, and that's sort of, again, would be counterproductive. And maybe it's, maybe on an affordable way, it's also silly. But there's little things that you can do. And Valerie put up a great app. There's an app you can put on your phone that you can look and see where food is made or whatever. But you do things in stages. You do it as it feels natural to you. I don't know who said somewhere, maybe you said your tastes are changing. So as that stuff happens, the only person that would be overwhelmed about it would be you yourself, or me myself, because I'm the one judging myself, saying, oh, it's all or nothing. No one's saying that unless you're saying that to yourself. So I would propose, don't say that to yourself. Be light about it. Have the intention of wanting to make a change if that's what you want to do, and do it in the ways that make sense to you. Maybe if you're looking to make your whole kitchen organic, you have to do some research on it. You just don't go to the most expensive organic store and blow your whole paycheck. I mean, again, I'm using food because it's just an easy alternative and it's an easy thing to talk about, but that can be anything in your life. Don't feel like everything has to be a certain way, or you have to live according to some standard that someone else stand up. The idea is to ask yourself, really, what is it that I see in my life that I feel like I could do better, or that would make things better, or would help other people, that wouldn't tread on other people? Are you a person who, when you walk down the street, do you throw your candy bar wrapper on the ground?
No. However, that's it.
I mean,
that's really the point I was trying to make, is that expending a whole bunch of energy on, like, when I personally do that, it just is depleting because it's resistance. Because
it's joyful for you to do it. If it's not joyful for you to do it, and it knocks you out, then it's probably not the right thing. I think if you make choices like that, it needs to be exciting for you. It shouldn't be a worry for you. It shouldn't put you in a state where you can't function. If anything, it should help you function better. So
exactly. That's exactly what it's trying to tell you, sweetie, is that you're causing your own resistance, and so it's just showing you. It's just showing you that.
Yeah.
You're causing your own resistance. You can choose it or not choose it, but you don't have to. And until you open up these compartments that you have set for yourself, you'll continue to compartmentalize everything else and judge it, and it won't flow.
Yeah.
I was using myself as an example for the all.
Indeed.
But I think you can only do a step at a time.
Yeah.
And you can't try and save the whole world, because or say, oh, I need to do something about this because that's what I used to do. Do something about this and do something about that, and right here and right there, and politics and the food and the GMOs and
exactly
and everything. And then finally, I started to go into this depression because I'm thinking I can't
do all this.
Can't eat anything.
So
well, that's the whole thing.
I went into this overwhelmed feeling because I felt like everything was going wrong and I wasn't able to help anything, until I decided, okay, enough is enough. I gave up trying to, I used to go to rallies and all kinds of things. But then I decided, okay, I need to do this differently, because this is obviously not working. So then
what works for too. I mean, just there's nothing wrong with that if that's really.
No. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it. But there's nothing wrong with it, and I think my kids learned a great deal because they went with us. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but to me it felt like wasted energy because I didn't feel I was getting anywhere.
Well,
it is wasted energy. That's why you're so tired, Michelle.
Michelle?
No, I mean, no, I know you're talking. No, I mean, I know you're talking, Sabrina, but I'm saying she said she would feel like it was.
This is not about me.
No, I mean, it was like she said she felt knocked out, and it's because we spent so much time trying to do things our mind wasn't designed to do. The how, the what, the when it's the intention and the vibration, and then allowing the law of attraction to bring the synchronicities and allow you, and then follow them. And it's not about pushing, like you said, Sabrina, going to the realities and the pushing against the things we don't want rather than flowing with what we do.
Well,
but I think also
something about that. You know.
Yeah. I don't agree with that because I think if that is something that feels right for you, if that is something that at that moment you feel you can make a difference by doing that particular thing, then I say go ahead and do it, because maybe the union energies of all the different people, like we went and protested, when the war started, that big rally in New York, we went and protested. Now, did it change anything? I don't know. But I think the energy of everybody together uniting for a worthy cause, in some way, I think made a difference.
Well, look what's happened with gay marriage in the U.S. now, and it's still unfolding all over the world. There were people that were marching and standing up and getting beaten down, and that couldn't be fun. Getting killed, and they stood up and they stood up and they stood up and they pushed and they pushed and they believed and they pushed, and eventually they changed minds, they changed hearts. They have, it's not over, but I don't agree that you don't push. I don't agree that you don't push if you believe that you need to push. I thank those people for standing up, and I thank them for the tireless hours. I especially thank the people who never saw the results of what they stood up for. We need the people that are passionate to do that. We need them to continue. It's not only about sitting in your house and lighting a candle. I mean, that's a very important thing as well, but there are people that will go for it, and I love that they do that. I encourage them to do it, and I thank them for doing that, and they made huge differences. So we shouldn't just say that pushing against is wrong. I think that's not actually. That's my personal opinion. I think it has big effects, especially when it's something that has to do with being true to the human person that we are and true to the divinity that is us. It makes a difference, and it's important.
Well, I think sometimes too it's more about just being yourself and being the example, and using the gay community as the example as you did. That I think it makes more of a statement to just be who you are and love who you are and be okay with that than it is to.
I don't agree. The gay people have been trying to be who they are their entire existence, and they have been beaten and killed and told they were nothing. They had no rights, nothing. You can be who you are as long as it's good for you, but
we can say that about women. We can say that about
races. The women
who
pushed and fought and got killed and beaten down by men to get the right to vote. Look at the women. I mean, those women fought. They fought tooth and nail.
Indeed.
So, God love them. Thank God they did, because we probably wouldn't have the freedom to even have this kind of conversation if they hadn't done it.
You go, girl.
No, but it's true.
I totally agree. But I think also we need to agree that we are at a point where things can be done differently.
And that's all I'm saying is I completely agree that those things had to happen in order for what had to happen, undeniable, undeniable.
Just because
What
the
I'm saying is now we're understanding we have a choice in that we can now change the way we perceive or the way we create our reality by intention, by focusing on what we do want. We don't have to push anymore. We can, but we don't have to, because it's not always the least resistant. Not always. And that's all they're saying is it's not denying or dishonoring that. It's allowing all of that.
It's allowing.
My special thanks will just have to go out to the American ladies back 100 so years ago, compared to the British ladies who were using violence, who were using these methods to try and get their method across, which is actually helping women lose the vote or lose that momentum. And what happened in America, those two beautiful ladies, you know, they stood outside peacefully. They used a very peaceful way of protesting, which led to an amazing revolution for humanity.
Well,
and I just want to say that thanks to them for doing that, because they did that in a certain way, they made that choice that they wouldn't be violent, like the suffragettes in England.
Well, I don't know, Rowie, if that's actually...
Even Rosa Parks, all she did was sit down and say, no, I'm not moving.
Yes, Rosa Parks was not the only person who made a difference. Think about, you know, yes and no. I agree, but I think that's you're highlighting one, but were so many. There's
no,
so
it's just one example, of
and
course.
The women,
yeah, but it just reiterates the point that sometimes.
Rowie's example is very good, but there was a lot of women who tried to just even breach the subject, and they were put in mental institutions by their husbands. You know, I mean, I would probably say I would be one of the ones fighting that. I don't think there's anything wrong with standing up for what you want. It doesn't always go so smoothly. Everyone isn't open to ideas. I come from the South in America, where just even less than a year ago, they were still fighting to keep up a flag that was about slavery and justifying it. I mean, you know, there was a lot of clashes about it. It's important sometimes, and sometimes the people who you are presenting the idea of, you know, this flag represents racism and slavery. Can we take it down? And they're screaming, you know, F you, and throwing bottles at you. It's not necessarily the.
But isn't fighting them about the right to hang their flag just as resistant? Isn't it saying, I don't allow you to be who you are?
Well, it's a matter of, yes, but who you are is hateful and racist, and you're defining, you're saying that this is what our country stands for. But we say that as Americans, isn't it that we say that it's the home of the free?
But I don't have to fight against it in order to not believe it.
No, but do you want it to fly there?
It raises my vibration and the vibration of the all if I'm simply focused on the joy of being who I am and not focus on that, because at some point it's going to change.
How is it going to change, though, Wendy?
Because
wait a minute. I want to say this. It's easy to say that as a white woman who doesn't experience racism, because you're just...
Oh, don't tell me I haven't experienced racism. I beg to differ. Yeah. In a great variety of ways, I will add. And it may not be because I'm of color, but it was because I was white and blonde and small. Let me tell you. I know exactly what it's like to be persecuted just for being the physical being I came on this planet to be. And that's it.
Daily?
Daily.
Okay.
Daily.
All right.
Yeah, I'd have to back Wendy up there. I've had experiences like that myself as well.
Well, I grew up ginger, so I know that that's the case as well. But
yeah.
You know, but I grew up in the South and I saw racism firsthand, and I remember what that flag represented and how it was presented and how the people were treated because of that was the overriding mentality. And
Do I sound though like a person don't forget to, well, I am a Sagittarian, so freedom is my middle name. So I realized early on in every place I worked that fighting didn't get me anywhere. All it did was get me in a place I didn't want to be rather than a place I did want to be. And that's just a personal experience perspective. That's all.
What about advocating rather than fighting? Let's just swap words. Because we're advocating that we no longer, as a people, display this flag that perpetuates the idea of racism.
Well, it's not everywhere. They still display it quite a lot of places. So it's not
a public place, right, Karen?
Sorry?
Yeah, public display.
Public place where it was in display. So then the question.
Capital. State capital in South Carolina.
Yeah, I know. So the question there goes, you know, if you want to talk about in terms of energy, you know, the energy that represented for a certain group of people. Yes, it might not bother some, but it bothers others. Yeah. So do we as a group feel that, and I'm just putting out a question, I'm not going to pull it out in either way, do we feel that it's okay to keep flying this flag when it represented some very negative energies and things that happen in the nation? So that is the question. You know,
that's the big question.
Is it just because it's okay with some, is it okay to fly it there for everyone to see?
Is that not everybody's choices to make their own choice on what that flag represents? And obviously someone would say to them, well, that flag's there because of this reason, because of that reason, and then you have another viewpoint saying, well, that flag is there because of this and because of it's an old tradition and they want to keep that, and then you are presented with the choice.
Right, and the question is, why can't I fly a white flag, just the white flag? You know, like who gets to determine what the flag should be? That is really
by law.
Depends where you live.
People get to determine it. By law, people and the lawmakers do.
Exactly.
And the question is, does the flag represent all the people? And I will tell you very clearly, that flag, specifically that specific flag, was the battle flag of the Confederacy. The Confederacy stood for fighting to keep slavery because it was economically the vehicle of the money of the South. Again, it always comes back to money.
Yes.
And it comes back to not wanting to make a choice that's good for everybody, because greed, as Rowie said in the very beginning, was the thing. And it was the disregard of people, their rights to have rights. You know, they classified black people as cattle. Just kind of like what's happened, you know, some still countries categorize women as property. You know, we all think that's wrong, but they categorized an entire group of people just because they were born with brown skin. They were not human beings. They were less. So that flag represents that. And, yeah.
Well, Bashar's point of view on the flags in general is, and if you use that perspective of what you just said about it not representing the all, then what they have to say about that is, then that would be the same perspective from a higher point of view of all the flags of every state of every country, because truly if you were a unified idea as a human collective, you would have one flag, the earth, the human flag. That's it. one.
Okay. Will's saying in chat he has to go soon. Will, is there anything you would like to say?
Yes.
This has been a very, very, very passionate discussion. And objectively, the original bullet points were, are we checking our own belief systems? Are we checking in with our own personal integrity? And are we taking responsibility? And I heard a lot of great points. I also heard a lot of passionate discourse on backing up their own personal belief systems and, in their viewpoint, taking responsibility for their own viewpoints and having the open discussion here. I appreciate that. And we're all
very poignant.
It is. It is. And we're all taking into account our own personal integrity and our belief systems. I've heard some people not respect others. I've heard some people respect the opposite viewpoint even though it's not popular. And I do agree with, hey, if we had one flag, that would be awesome. But that's my personal belief system and my personal integrity of which flag am I going to fly, things like that.
Are you there? You
I am.
Okay. We don't. Did you stop talking? I didn't know if you cut out.
Namaste.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you.
Namaste, Will.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Much love.
Blessings, Will.
Hey guys.
Yes.
I just wanted to share with you. Recently, in Colombia, the gay adoption has been legalized, and I found myself between heated conversations between people who feel really, really against it, and people who are not. And so I found myself, at first I thought, oh my God, I need to fight against this, because they need to realize that everybody's the same and everybody has the same rights. And then it just clicked. I thought, you know what, I can't change everybody's mind. Then I thought I'll just pay more attention into the positive people. You know what I mean? So, like you were saying, like you have to go against the tide, or you have to fight. But then it's a good point to sometimes realize that one person is not going to change everybody's mind. So I just wanted to share that with you. That I once I realized that I couldn't change people's mind against gay adoption, I decided to support the positive thoughts and kind of ignore, well, not really ignore, that's not the right word, but just to put my energies, focus my energies on the positive instead of the negative comments that I received. So that's it. That was, I just wanted to share that with you.
Perfect. Beautiful.
And I would like to say at the end, it's good that we are here and we're able to talk to each other about this, because most of the time these conversations are avoided because people are afraid to disagree with each other. They're afraid of, unless you agree with me, I don't want to talk to you. Seems to be a lot of the mentality lately. And I think it's okay for us not to agree.
But what are they disagreeing about?
You would have had to be here. You would have had to be here for that.
It is okay, because it's about allowing. It's the allowing. You know, everybody can
What?
individually choose what they want.
Well,
Well, yeah, of
if
course.
you're going into allowing,
Yeah.
then let's go back 75 years ago to Nazi Germany, and then 10 years later after it finished. With democracy and allowance, you have to allow the viewpoint of the Nazis to exist. Otherwise, he couldn't go on, because the rights of you stop when the rights of someone else start. So if you want to enforce your beliefs, your rights upon somebody, you're actually being that Nazi.
But
And when I've
do
lived in
you,
Germany, I put that to people who were
okay.
anti-Nazi,
Well, let me
and
ask
they
you.
were
Can I ask you?
they were
And then
Can I
there's
ask you
also
a
a reason
question?
to fight.
Can I ask you a question? Do you really think that that was Hitler that died, or was that his body double?
Well,
I'm not here to get into that personally,
Uh, okay.
but I don't believe anything that's written in his story. So that's my standpoint.
His
What we're
story.
talking about here, I think, is more about the rights of where someone's rights start and where rights stop, and where the allowance of somebody else's belief system is, how
Yes.
you feel about it, how you are righteous about it. Right? Do I feel about that? No, that can't happen. No way. I don't. Who are
I didn't say
you
that.
to enforce
Well,
those rights upon somebody
I
else?
didn't.
I
I
think
That's
didn't
a
say that.
very.
there,
Can we
there,
just let?
but Rowie, and I've always actually used that phrase, your rights end where mine begin. But
Mm-hmm.
there's also as a society, there are certain things that we have to come into agreement with. And are we all going to like it? That's the question. We're not all going to like whatever it is. Some people, let's say you say, oh no, we all have to go vegetarian because it's better. So some people might not agree. In fact, some people might get sick because their body still needs meat. And the
They need
ones
that.
who want it vegetarian
They
are
need that.
happy with it.
Yeah, they would need that fear.
So, and the ones that didn't say I still need my meat. So the question is, how do we come to an agreement? Some basic things that we can all agreed upon as a society, that we say, I'm okay with this, because it's for the betterment of all, even though it's a sacrifice for me.
well, that's the
So,
question. Do we want to have is there, I mean, we're talking a lot hypothetically because we are not all in that mentality. I think if we all had that mentality of the good of all, but there doesn't seem to be that mentality the world
Well,
over. The
because
world
you
over. Well, wait a minute, Rose. Let me finish. The world over. It's not that mentality. So I agree. But if our mentality is the good of all, some choices will become so easy because they won't be choices anymore. It'll be the natural progression of things. It'll be the way things go because everyone's sort of looking out for each other. We're at the moment, we're in a situation where individually now we're having to really look and pick and choose what it is we want. As people are waking up, things are happening, but there's still that part of us that are, yeah, there's that part of us that's still.
how are you waking up though?
How am I waking up?
Yeah.
Well, I am becoming more aware of my connectivity to the divine and to each other, and just my awareness of dimensions is coming in, and just my awareness of how my actions impact the rest of the world.
So you're becoming more conscious?
Sure, you can use a different word, the same thing, yeah.
Okay. That's good.
But I'm just talking about me. This is sort of a general discussion about, but for
I don't
everyone.
know what the hell you guys are talking about, but I'm just going by what I talk about. So,
Okay.
anyway, I think being more conscious in everything you do So even walking and not texting, driving and not texting, um, shopping, just going grocery shopping and not texting. I mean, the devices is starting to take over our social connectivity within ourselves. So, like, instead of talking to your mother, you're texting your mother, or like I just stated earlier, just previously, that comes into play too, and then not only that, I feel like we're missing the connection of socializing.
True.
And yeah, we're here and we're talking, but like a lot of people are still like on another chat room, or they're still It's just not full connection anymore, you know?
We all have ways that we have to get back to each other. That's for sure. We need to
We do.
reconnect. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And the only time that happens is when all your electricity gets turned off.
Well, if that was the case, Rose, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So,
Well, if
no.
all the well, but
I mean,
that's
honestly,
when
you're talking to me through
that,
electricity right now.
no.
Yes,
This
yes,
is
yes.
no,
Yes.
no,
Okay.
no. Because when the electricity goes off, you're walking outside and you're talking to your neighbors.
Sure.
How often? Okay, right? How often do you talk to your neighbors?
Every single day.
Every single day.
Yeah. I
Really?
do. Yeah.
Okay, but usually when your electricity goes off, you go outside and you go, "Hey, did you call PG&E? Yeah. What do you think the electricity is going to be turned back on?" You're having real conversation with people,
So
right?
this is real conversation as well. And what happens if the electricity goes off? I just want to put a hypothetical situation into
It's
this,
all gone.
because
It's done.
just let me talk for a second. This would be interesting, because once the communication systems break down, then somebody worries about, what are they doing in that part of the land? Oh, we need to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
The communication comes together through all the events that we are doing. Yeah, I agree. Some of those devices that we have, everyone's looking down rather than looking up. I want people looking at the sky, seeing what's going on, rather than,
Chemtrail.
well, whatever. I'm not talking about chemtrails precisely. I was actually referring to
Engineering.
my brothers and sisters from outer space. But
Whatever.
yeah, exactly. But it's whatever your focus lies on, and you wouldn't actually know about these things unless we had all the electricity, which I believe should be a human right anyway by now, to the whole of the planet. To give everyone the power so they can live in a.
Could I say that you could consciously decide that you wanted to get to know your neighbors, and then you can. Like, I just moved into this neighborhood maybe 3 years ago, but I know everybody on both sides of the block and starting on the next block, just because, like, I'll go and introduce myself. I'll bring them some beets I've canned or whatever.
Because you're conscious. Because you're conscious.
Well, I'm just saying that we all, that starts a ripple effect.
But not everybody's like that.
Well, it started a ripple effect, and now our neighbors all know each other. So one person can really make a difference.
It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. It only takes one. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
I agree. But at the same time, not everybody in society thinks like that. And not everybody is connected to their neighbors. A lot of people don't even know who their neighbors are.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to say is you can consciously start yourself.
Let's take what's happening in Israel and Palestine. They are neighbors.
Yeah, they're neighbors. Yeah.
They're neighbors.
Yeah.
And look what's going on there. You can take macrocosms, you can take microcosms as examples and put them down and lay them all out in front of you, and you can show where the disharmony is and try and bring more harmony to it. But it's sometimes can be a complicated situation.
Yeah.
So that's why taking responsibility for these actions and what Karen was addressing at the start are very, very vitally important to how we are progressing, where we want to go, And rather than focusing and blaming all these things that are going on, let's actually embrace them and deal with them and tackle them at the root. That would be my last things to say.
Everybody say hi to their neighbors tomorrow. That's everyone's.
I know. Say hi to your neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah, and just remember that, like, we're here to transform the dark into light. So,
that's right.
Yes,
well,
we do see some dark, but try to transform it.
The dark runs from the light.
Runs, transforms, potato, potato. Either way, things become
No, the dark runs from the light. And when you have the light, the dark runs.
Okay.
Just like that person did right there. Maybe.
No.
Oh, sorry, that's a bit below the belt, Michelle. That I can't condone that to be happening in the room. People just don't run and leave and stuff like that. So Michelle, please don't
I
take
can
that.
leave. I can leave. I don't give a fuck.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you very much, though.
Adios, fuckers.
Well, we need to transform those thoughts into light right now.
Yeah, that was a great example, really, for us as well.
It's sort of trolling. It's a trolling, but it's an anger based.
Guys, my point before was
it got put right into play, guys.
yeah. No,
yes,
never
Penny Rose was here.
Never to ignore the negative, but always give support, give your energy to the positive.
Yeah.
And that was my point before.
Well, exactly. It's just she brings up good points. I mean, we're people are looking down and stuff. We can all look up and look at each other, and this is also communication. And I'm thankful that we have the chance to talk to Australia and to Holland and to Michigan and Kalamazoo and where everybody is.
Me too. I mean, I've never been able to connect around the world like this ever, and know people from around the world without the internet and without this. And Karen, it's something that, with connectivity and disconnectivity with this first technology, and I really do believe it's brought us together. But in the idea of what we were talking about just now about neighbors, the one thing I have to say is this connectivity that I've discovered with all of this and all of you and the internet has actually brought me more aware of my own connectivity to my neighbors and my own community in a way that I never did before. It made me more aware. And when all of this talk about being the way that we want to see the world to be, I've discovered that I have the most amazing experiences now in little everyday greetings, whether it's the grocery store or the gas station, because now I go into it thinking, okay, what beautiful light am I going to see today, and how can I make that person feel like they're the most important part of my moment right now. Think of how when we go to a place of service, whether it's to get a cup of coffee, food, whatever, and you're treated by the cashier or anybody else as representative of the organization in a manner that makes you feel amazing or in a manner that makes you feel powerless and or oppressed in some way. Now, think of how you feel when you leave and what energy you take with you when you leave that experience. Often we come to an experience in a negative, not negative, but maybe a lower vibration environment, and we leave feeling uncomfortable, and we're not even sure why, and we're cranky and weird all day. Yet, if we go into these experiences with each other and not be afraid to look up and look at each other in the eye and say hello, and you're the most important thing in my moment, now that person you've just engaged with, they're going to engage with everyone else differently all day because you made them feel light, the light within them. Now they're going to go and show someone else the light within them because now they know the power behind that. And if we all could go into every day, every little tiny invitation for an interaction this way, I have had amazing experiences in 5 minutes. And it changed my whole day. And I know for sure it changed theirs and everyone else they touched all day. That, I think, is the magic of that, of showing another their own magical piece of this puzzle, and it reflects back to you and it reflects back out to everything like a beautiful mirror.
That's true. That's what it's all about, you know. And the thing is, though, I will just say this: it's great when you see the result of what you do, because it validates the reason you've done it. It inspires you to do it more because you see the result. The mastery, however, comes in doing something without seeing the result and still doing it and still having that feed you and still knowing that, you know what, maybe I don't see that person. Maybe it's only when that person in retrospect looks back on what you put out there. Maybe they don't ever respond, but it's doing it anyway without this sort of idea that it's going to have a knock-on effect. It may or may not, but that's not the important thing. In your own integral self or integral self, you do it anyway because that's who you are. Always. All the time. At least ideally, because nobody's always on the, well, maybe a few. Probably Wendy is, but I'm definitely not, you know, always at my best when I'm interacting with people. I hope to be one day. I hope so, but not always.
Can I add that, honestly, I used to work in the bar, restaurant, casino business, and I did it for 20 years.
Yeah,
and
me too. Not 20.
I know that it's really hard to drop your life outside the door when you walk in, but I had a really good habit of doing that. Whatever I had going on outside of work stayed outside of work. I shut my cell phone off, and when I walked in the door, it was all about the people that I needed to help and be around that day. And for the most part, people that come into a bar are not happy people.
Yeah.
They're not having a good day, you know? Sometimes they're there to celebrate, but for the most part, they're coming in alone and they're not happy. And so you just kind of learn who to be around and who not to be around. But my job was to do the best job I could at smiling and at trying to brighten their day in whatever way I could. And you know, it's great if you walk in a place and that does happen.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I've also had the other experience where I've walked in somewhere and they haven't been very nice to me.
Yeah.
And so I just say, you know, I came in here to relax and have a good time, and not in a, you know, I'm talking about a restaurant. But you know, if I don't have that feeling there, then I'm going to get up and leave.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't have time in my life for that that kind of behavior, and I'm not going to enjoy my dinner if that's the way I'm being treated.
Sure.
And so that's a choice too. I
Yeah.
mean, everything we've talked about today from the very beginning has been a choice, you know, and it's everyone's freedom of choice that we're talking about. And at the same time, you're trying to ask, you know, what do you want for this new earth?
Yeah.
Because today is a new beginning.
You know,
what do we want for Gaia?
Yeah.
What do we want for ourselves and this planet in our ascension?
Yeah.
And for me, it's to ascend.
I think the thing that Wendy does well, and I think the thing that you've just said that you do well, is there's an idea about being in service to others. Ultimately, it serves yourself. We make a commitment to be in service to each other, to love each other, to look out for each other, to stand up to each other, even when it's not the popular thing. There are times, and there's people, God love them, that stand up and are in service when people are awful to them all the time, or they're in the most terrible situations, and it's not about convincing, you know, your boss to put in good lighting, which is a really beautiful thing to do, and it's incredible that you can make those changes. But there's people like Mother Teresa who worked in the worst conditions, and her only problem was she didn't have enough time to feed all the people she wanted to feed. You know, that was her biggest problem. And that's really big service. And, you know, people who work in the most terrible conditions and still find a way to stay in service without, you know, having to, with accepting the way things are, but still doing it with the same passion and the same dedication and doing it. And, you know, we all will encounter something like that, whether it's service to our child or to our family or service to something. We all have the ability to make that kind of difficult choice too, you know, but there's no but really. It's just more of, right, what Valerie said, of how do we want our 3D Earth to be? How do we want our world to be? And every choice, because it is a choice, does impact that. And the more we're aware of it, the more we will make that difference, starting with our very next choice. So that's all I have to say about that. And I think we might have reached a really good point to stop, unless someone else has anything else to add.
I just want to thank you for being such a great host.
That's a good last point, and I still want to say I'm back.
Okay, that's good, Zach. Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you to everyone else. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the broadcast.
Everyone.
Everybody. Thank you.
It was awesome.
Namaste, everyone, and God bless.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, everyone.
Wait a minute. One last thing. Sabrina first, and then, or Wendy first, and then Sabrina. Please do the blessing. Thank you. We didn't start with a blessing, but we're sure gonna end with one.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Okay, I sure.
Wendy first, Sabrina will take us home. Thank you.
Okay, me first, right? Okay. Hinakalukua sayamaluwa saiki alamalurahi kaitotola yimaluaka. Nisiti ala sotoluraka shibliaka ni ananawa soluraha. Miliasa nia alurahiko payorahisina yako akaliasa. Sanamaluasa tia kayorahisayawala kama. Mi inana suakaliasa tia toluaka shiakoyo soha. Shinita toyo kosa toluasa yamaluasaha. Siti alasia toyo koramila hiko. Mishia yurahisia koyasa. Sinite akoyo koha payo porahisa. Sikilia neno akayoko. Piabahala kayorahisia kalias nuayo. Imimaso ayolihasia kayoria. Malua tikia sa tikulukua. Mimilia kayi shuriala. Leat lurakiu kuya goma. Liasia liakolia shakio yusotua. Shia yelua satai. Mikia nonua tikia shoyukua sataya. Ziniga oto kayomala. Inania sataya. Ashia katuha. Mia yeluaka. Masoyo ashurakai. Alukuasani. Asoto. Mia Yushua. You have opened the portals. You have broken down the barriers. And you have built bridges. You are one. Nyatoyo Kwasha. Mahala. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. I think they want me to do it. So I say, let's create a world where we understand each other, where we're tolerant of each other, where we're loving, where we're caring, where every person matters, regardless of who or what they are, where there is no class but the class of people who care about each other, where there are no differences except in how we look at things, not on who we are, where your value and my value is the same, where no matter what happens, we are there to give a hand to one another. That regardless of what's gone on, of what anyone's done, we all learned from it, and we're all there for each other. And we learn to see that everybody's experience is just as valid, just as important. That because I happen to have done something that was considered really bad in the past, that I can learn and I can move forward and I can become somebody else. So let's see a world and create a world where we are all united in the love that we feel towards each other. Though we all think differently, we can all find a way where we all cherish each other. Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Gratitude.
Namaste.
Oh, Karen, you muted yourself.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for everyone that attended, to starting in the left, to Benny, to Brian, to Carolina, to Rowie and Kim, to Wendy, to Michelle who's left, to Marlo, to Sabrina, to Valerie, and myself. My name is Karen Newman. I really appreciate everyone listening and sharing their thoughts, all of them. And I love you all, and namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Happy 11/11, everyone.
Yeah,
Make
love
it a special.
11/11. Woohoo! Thank you, Karen. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Gratitude, Karen.